Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Energized Empowered Professional Women's Summit. I am so happy to see all of you here and to give you a huge, warm welcome to this summit where we have these amazing, beautiful, dedicated women from all over the globe who are here to help you leave behind exhaustion, frustration, and burnout to confidently take back your life with renewed energy and vitality. And we're going to do this by having real and raw conversations on how to identify, communicate, heal, and prevent burnout. And we have some amazing bonuses and some amazing speakers here. And tonight we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So I warmly invite you to put in your comments, your likes, your questions in the comments in all these fantastic social media platforms that allow us to really reach a whole lot of people. And with Facebook, my assistant JL will put in some instructions on how you will be able to access and to put in the comments. But firstly, I would love to warmly welcome Dr. Ela Manga and to the summit and to the screen.
Hello, Vanessa.
And hi, Ela. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you? I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited.
We can't hear you, Ela. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Can we hear you now?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Still can't hear you.
Okay.
What's happening? We could hear you before.
Okay. No?
Oh, yeah. There we go. There we go.
Wonderful. Hello, Vanessa. Sure. Okay. I had to take a few breaths there.
Yes. There you go. So this is going to be a really great thing for both of us to have for deep breaths today. So that's just very exciting today. So today we have Dr. Ela Manga, and she's talking about burnout to breathing, optimizing breath intelligence as a key to resilience. So welcome, Ela. I really appreciate your time and just coming here and being with us, to sharing the breath with us. I am being a fan of Dr. Ela for 2 or 3 years now, because I studied as a breathwork facilitator when I was on my burnout journey, and I wanted to go deeper into myself. And the way to do it was become a facilitator, because you have to fix yourself first or heal yourself first before you heal, you help everyone else. And I wanted that bit first. And I did that. And I was then exposed to Ela's work. And I listened to her in the Shift Network, in different talks and summits that she had done. And I was always drawn to her work, her beauty, her heart, and her vision. And when I reached out to Ela and said, could I ask you to come and share with us about breathwork and about your books that you've written and your vision for the future, and to share some breathwork with us to help women who are in burnout? And she said, yes. My heart leapt for joy, because that was a vision of mine that's come true, to bring breathwork to the world as well as part of it. So welcome, Ela, to here and to our summit. And I would like to introduce Ela. She's an integrative medical doctor, author, speaker, and a leading voice in the field of mind-body medicine and wellness. She's an expert in the field of energy management and burnout. So her first book, Breathe, Strategizing Energy in the Age of Burnout, is fast becoming the go-to guide for managing energy and optimizing physical and mental health, which is absolutely amazing. And her unique focus on breathwork has been a catalyst for healing and change across many communities and sectors. She's the founder of Breathwork Africa, an organization that offers training and support to breathwork practitioners across the globe. She lives and works in the vibrant city of Johannesburg in South Africa. That's Ella.
Wow.
More importantly, let's listen to what she has to share with us.
Wow, Vanessa, thank you so much for that generous introduction. I am so excited to be here. And I just have to say a huge thank you to you for following your heart and your calling into creating this platform and for having these conversations that are so important. Right from the beginning, I had the feeling of the energy of this summit. And I just feel really honored and privileged to be part of it. So thank you. And welcome to everybody who's listening today.
Yes, thank you and welcome. Much appreciated. So, I would love to start with it. We all start with our story because this is an incredible way where we connect as humans, through
Yes.
storytelling and
Yes.
through interpersonal mirroring to each other. So I would love to know what your story, what brought you to breathwork, and what brought you to really writing that book on helping people with energy and burnout. That's really quite
Mm.
fascinating to me. I don't think I heard the book story yet, but I have heard I've heard your story and it's absolutely beautiful about breathwork. So yeah,
Yeah.
over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. Often when I reflect on my relationship with the breath, I take myself back to when I was a medical student, and in fourth year, we are given a stethoscope, and we are now trained to listen out for heart sounds and breath sounds and for pathology in order to make a diagnosis. And I realized that already my thinking was starting to be shaped around illness and around the illness mindset and the paradigm of medicine.
Mm,
But not realizing that at the same time, as I was placing my stethoscope on someone's chest and asking them to take a deep breath, that something was happening already to shift their physiology. I only realized that much later, though. So it took me a long time to get to that point of shifting my understanding of breath and relating to it, not so much from an illness pathological paradigm, but from a
mm,
healing paradigm.
yep.
And, it was after my internship and community service at the age of 23 that I experienced my first episode of burnout and didn't quite recognize it then as burnout. All I knew was that I was completely sleep deprived after all
Hmm.
those night shifts and our 36-hour shifts. And I just don't understand why we have that system. It makes absolutely no
No.
sense to me. So I started my career off already being burnt out, just
Yep.
from my basic needs being not being met. And I was disconnecting from my love for people, which was very concerning to me. I
Yep.
had become almost dissociated. I didn't understand it then. All I
Hmm.
knew was that I needed to get out of that system. And so I started my career as a general practitioner, locuming for a friend who had a GP practice. And I really fell in love with being a GP. I loved working with young families. I loved the fact that I could spend more time with my patients. It felt like a more humanized system, you know. And the more I started to work in that way, then I bought the practice subsequently. And I started to really hear the stories behind the symptoms. I started to see the whole person behind the symptom that was being presented to me. That
Wow.
behind the symptom was a whole history, was a whole story, a life story. And I started to see patterns emerging between the symptoms that I was seeing,
Yep.
headaches, insomnia, anxiety, blah, 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 where we just, trained to write a prescription.
Yep.
Meantime, I was seeing that there was so much more that was happening. And that was really hard for me because we weren't trained to support people's health in that way. We weren't trained in understanding the profound connection between body, mind, and spirit. And at that time, I was going through my own journey of understanding that for myself. And the more I kind of went into that experience for myself, the more frustrated I became with how I was practicing medicine. And that is when I experienced my second episode of burnout, but a different kind of burnout. It was a burnout of disconnection from my essence, because I realized that the way I was trained was not in alignment with my value system. So it was a burnout related to a crisis of meaning, a dark night of the soul, if you will.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And as much as that was really difficult for me, it was a profound opportunity. It was an opening. And I started to equip myself with the understanding of how the body-mind system worked. I studied other courses. At that time, integrative medicine wasn't something that was well known,
Yep.
And it was when the discomfort of my current situation was greater than the fear of the unknown that I made the step to sell my practice and, figure out a whole new, different way of practicing medicine.
Wow.
And that's what I did, with a friend of mine who's a social worker. We started to create this a new system of bringing together mindfulness practices, yoga, massage, nutrition, energy medicine, and to create long-term programs for 12 weeks or so. And that was fascinating, because the kind of people who we started to work with were people that were also realizing that the conventional system of medicine wasn't quite working for them. And they were open, they were seeking a new way of understanding themselves. That, even though they experienced these symptoms, they went to their doctor and they had a whole lot of tests done. They would all come back normal, but they were still feeling this way, and didn't know where to turn. And that's when I started to think about this idea of burnout and what that means, and realizing that actually everybody that I was seeing was somewhere along the road to burnout.
Right.
And I started to kind of bring together the paradigm of burnout from a psychological perspective, what we understand burnout to be from a psychological perspective, and also what we understand burnout to be from an adrenal fatigue perspective, because those were seen separately. And I thought it was important to kind of understand our energy system in a different way. And that's when I started writing my book, and to look at the difference between this adrenalized energy, which is really it's addictive, it's energizing, it's wonderful in the short term. But the body can only sustain that for a certain amount of time until we get to a point where the adrenals can't cope anymore. We reach a tipping point, and that's kind of when we feel more tired than wired. It's more difficult to wake up in the morning. The whole hormonal system starts to shift, and the whole autonomic nervous system becomes quite dysregulated.
Right.
So I really wanted to explore this idea of authentic energy and how we tap into authentic energy with body's intelligence, mind's intelligence, and heart's intelligence. It was interesting. Yeah. It was interesting at the same time, around the time that I was writing my book, that I came upon breathwork, and I had an experience of conscious connected breathing, which was completely life-changing for me. So I had done breathwork as part of yoga practices, Kundalini yoga, but nothing like I experienced in this session. It was as if I completely came home to myself. I had an experience of myself that I kind of was craving, but didn't know that I had been seeking, that it was, wow, this is the feeling I've been seeking, this deep connection with myself. It was just absolutely incredibly profound. And I thought, well, if we have access to this, if every human has access to their own breath, which we do, what is possible? for the way we relate to ourselves. And if we can have this experience for ourselves, how do we show up for the intensity of the world, for our demands that are placed on us? How do we reach into the demands of the world and the intensity of the world, but knowing this, anchored to this place?
Mm-hmm.
So I became really curious around what was happening, in terms of the neuroscience, in terms of what
Yep.
was happening in the body, and explored that in depth because I wanted to make breathwork more accessible to more people.
Yep.
And I realized as I opened my awareness to the whole vast field of breathwork that it is quite overwhelming and can be quite confusing. What do we mean when we talk about breathwork? Should I be
Yep.
breathing like this? Should I be breathing like that? Holotropic breathing means I must breathe fast through my mouth, or, rebirthing says we do a session by breathing fast through the mouth. Wim Hof has a particular style. And then we look at techniques like the Buteyko method, who are advocating a completely different style of breathing,
Yep.
where, you're breathing through your nose and you're breathing very little. So I thought it was really important, firstly, to bring people's awareness to this very powerful, simple resource that they have right within them that is accessible to everybody. And that was important for me, especially working in our current reality, in South Africa, where most people are so under-resourced in terms of health and well-being, that,
Yep.
it is important for me for everybody to feel that they have more agency in terms of their health and well-being. So that was the
Yep.
first thing. And the second thing, it was very important for me to simplify this field of breathwork so that we could understand that all of these practices are beautiful and all of these practices have a role and a purpose. But if we could understand the physiology behind breathwork, we could apply these practices more skillfully and very practically in our everyday life. And that's when I created, together with the International Breathwork Foundation, the Science and Research Group, this framework called the Art of Breathing, which is an acronym as well for awareness, regulation, and transformation. So I love the acronym because it speaks to this idea of breathing as a form of art.
Yes.
And that, if we understood the physiology, the neuroscience behind these practices and what was happening when we did particular practices, then we could apply them very skillfully. So the art, A, is awareness, breathing for awareness. So that's simple awareness of the breath without changing it in any particular way, which is so profound in itself. It is the foundation for any conscious breathing practice. Okay, it's the basis for any meditation, mindfulness practice, and every
Yep.
tradition. When we talk about meditation, it involves some kind of awareness of breath.
Yes.
And then the R is regulation. And regulation is about upregulating the system. So certain practices that upregulate the system, downregulating the system. So there are certain practices that are very calming and more, activate the parasympathetic system more. And then the practices that are more balancing, like a coherent breathing or, box breathing, they're more balancing for the system. And so these are practices that can be very practically integrated into our everyday life, which is actually what's the most important to build up our breath intelligence. And then the T is for transformation, which is the more deep therapy, where you actually going to someone who's trained and experiencing a deep dive, conscious connected breathing session, or a transformational style of a breathwork session that creates an altered state of consciousness and supports deep inner work, and I think that we can work with a full spectrum. It all supports functional breathing, how we should be breathing in our everyday life.
Yep.
And that is, breath intelligence, essentially. So all of these beautiful practices serve in our breath intelligence.
Oh wow, that really like sums up what I was going through when I was learning about breath work. and that whole icing on the cake where, I went through and had the awareness, and then I was learning, okay, this is how you regulate your nervous system. And then it's like, there's this one more thing. And then I went to do a conscious connected breath session, and which was facilitated. And then I just went, that's the thing. That's it. And all of that with your art, as you're saying before, was one of the keys on helping me through my burnout recovery. And I use breathwork every day now for regulating my system. And then I do, a once a week where I go for a facilitated meditation, because that really helps with just that whole thing. So I really connect with what you're saying here, and that whole using that as a one of the healing modalities, and a big healing modality is great, because it just covers a lot of what we're saying, regulating the nervous system, and which is all part of burnout, because our nervous systems are not are kind of out of whack. So I really appreciate that, what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about then burnout and the breath, is so it how you were talking about, in a more integrative way of understanding burnout. So how would you comment on that?
It's so interesting. There's so many different perspectives of what burnout is. And, from a surface level, it seems obvious that burnout is when we are giving out more than we are replenishing.
Yep.
But it's also deeper than that. I think for me, burnout is a state of disconnection from what is authentically important to us. So it's the sources of energy within us and around us.
Yep.
Right. And, from the time we are conceived, we are already imprinted, we are already influenced by ancestral memories. And then we go through the in utero experience, which is another layer of experience. We have the birth experience, and our first our first breath shapes our relationship with ourselves and the world. And we go through our lives and we're conditioned and we absorb what the world is about, and we develop strategies of feeling safe. Right?
Yes.
We find some kind of subconscious way of making our world feel safe. And for many of us as women, and being naturally empathetic, our default is to just be quiet and to make everybody happy and to ensure that everyone is okay. And when everyone is okay and everybody else around me is happy and my environment is calm, then I'm okay.
Yep.
Right? So we figure out the subconscious strategy of saying yes, of supporting everybody, of making it all okay for everybody. And this is already when we start to kind of shape our idea of boundaries or lack of boundaries. Right? So it comes from an innate need to make our world feel safe, to be seen, to be appreciated, to be acknowledged. And so it is very early on that our baseline nervous system gets set. So do we kind of develop a strategy that where we're excelling, where we're doing really well, we're pushing hard because that is the formula of success? Or do we kind of go into a more freeze mode or disassociated mode in order for us to, make our world feel safer? And most of us do both. Okay, so we push ahead. We really disregard the information that the body is sending to us in this attempt of doing enough, doing more. Are we enough?
Yes.
So in this, in this journey, in this striving towards being enough, we start disconnecting even more. So we develop this idea of what success is or what enough is. And in the process of striving for that, we start disconnecting more and more, often from our essence. But our hearts and our souls are so beautiful and forgiving and loving that it finds a way of calling us back to ourselves. And often that calling back appears in the form of a crisis. It shows up in the form of burnout or a feeling stuck or a relationship crisis or some kind of crisis. And often, people come to me and they say, well, I feel so stuck in my life. And I say to them, well, yes, perfect, beautiful.
Yep.
Because that is an invitation just to stop and change direction. And it's not so much about moving forward, because we all have this idea of where we need to be,
Yes.
In the future. So if we can stop and just send our awareness inwards and down and rooted, we can access something deeper. We can access something deeper. So, when we talk about recovering from burnout or healing from burnout, I see that as a beautiful invitation, and not that anything needs to be fixed.
Yep.
Because the burnout is the dissolution and the disintegration of everything that was no longer working. And so whatever feels like it's broken, beautiful, sweep it out, sweep it away. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to piece it all back together, because it's easier to go back to what we know.
Yes.
So what if we just sweep those shards away and make space for what is ready to emerge within us from the depths of who we are? And that is difficult. That's challenging. And we cannot do it alone. Okay?
Yes.
So we're not wired to operate in isolation. And I think that is really important. So as much as we're doing the inner work and we're uncovering belief systems and, we're going back to childhood patterns and, investigating that as part of the journey to burnout, I think that it's really important that we understand that we cannot do it alone. There's a beautiful Zulu saying that's well known in South Africa and also globally, Ubuntu. And the loose translation of it is, I am because we are. But it's far deeper than that. It speaks to this idea of interrelatedness. I think Dan Siegel has just launched a book now called Interconnected, I think.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it is. It's this interconnectedness, but interconnectedness. And how do we start to live more in alignment with this natural law? So we are reconnecting with the disconnected aspects of us. Even this idea of body, mind, heart, they see as separate. They're not.
Yes.
We train to see our systems as separate: cardiovascular system, respiratory system, GIT. They all work together. And so when we can start to use something like conscious breathing to reweave all of these aspects together, we can also use this thread of breath to reconnect us to whatever community means for us, and finding that community again and creating a new sense of community. And that's really exciting. And that's exactly what we're doing on the summit here. So it's finding those sources of support within us, between us, and also as part of the greater, as part of the natural earth that we are part of,
Yep. So, because when you're in burnout, you have this tendency to kind of isolate yourself, and
Yes.
you've got with all that shame and with everything that's going on, and you just don't have enough energy. But what I found was just personally that having be able to share that journey with someone, and someone says, yes, me too, and that mirroring of that empathy between each other is really, really important. And yes, you're right. This is one of the main reasons why I thought, let's do this summit, because the conversation needs to happen. And I would and people need to know that they are not alone, and that they are safe to have this conversation in spaces that exist. And I love the fact that we can use the breath as well to bring people together, and that's why I became a breathwork facilitator, because I said, let's bring a community of people together that would do the breathwork together and share unapologetically where they're at, who they are, and then we breathe together with that intention of who they want to become.
Absolutely.
And I remember this term that you coined, humanity, and
Yes.
I think you from what my essence of what I get from it is like, the breath brings us together as a humanity of
Yes.
people. Did I get that sort of strongness of
Absolutely.
your word?
Yes. So it's interesting, the word humanity. So the first part is pneuma. It comes from the Greek word for breath or spirit, pneuma, and humanity. So it speaks to a breath-inspired humanity, new human,
Yes.
new humanity.
I think I got it.
And
Did I get it right there?
yes,
Humanity.
that's
Yes.
perfect.
Great.
Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting, if we look at many ancient traditions and languages and religions, we see that the word for spirit and the word for breath is the same.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
so
Yes.
so that speaks to that idea and that reconnection with that essence of life force, chi, prana, and umoya, that we have within us, to ignite that again as the ultimate source of source energy. and
Yes.
and and also, when we start to connect with that again, we also connect with ourselves as part of all that is.
Yes.
And so humanity really encapsulates the seven threads, or natural laws, or principles that are our guiding principles for our practitioners and at the Breathwork Africa community, but I also think are universal,
Mm.
and so what's important for us with the philosophy of humanity is that it speaks to the idea of being healing informed. And often when we are healing from burnout, even the term burnout, it's so loaded. We have
Yes.
certain ideas of what that is. And as you said, there's a lot of shame and guilt around it on one hand. And it's also what society kind of values. How many episodes of burnout have you had, as part of your journey to, as you climb the ladder? It's almost as if it's celebrated in some strange way as well.
Yep.
So, for us, it's about, rather than trying to identify, or there's a risk of being identified as someone who has been given a diagnosis, whatever the diagnosis is, and to move towards a place of wholeness. So we are starting to identify more with our natural, innate wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from this place of wholeness that we can start to do the work.
Yep.
So we shift who we are identifying with, the aspect of ourselves that we are identifying with. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not to deny our pain. It's not to deny our feelings and emotions and our story and our trauma, but it's approaching it from a place of wholeness. And for me, that's the gift of breath work, that it takes us to that place. It gives us a direct embodied experience of this place. It brings us back to the wisdom of our bodies, the magic of our human form that is so incredible,
Yep.
that is so designed to support the creation of new neural pathways. As much as we
Yep.
designed for survival and we kind of default to modes of survival, we are also innately wired for
Mm-hmm.
creativity.
Yes.
And when we just simply put those basic conditions in place, then the whole system starts to recalibrate quite easily.
Yep. And that's absolutely, yeah, that's what I have experienced in my life as well. And it's been interesting to see how my progression has gone from using breathwork as that, and how more resilient I am now. And something can go wrong, and it used to be like, oh, I'll be like, but now my heart's open. I'm looking at alternatives, as in an open-hearted way, in a loving way to myself, and laugh it off. We had Jenny yesterday, and the internet just went, and so we had to find, we had to find another way, and we did, and we laughed about it. But in the past, I would have, I would have
Yes.
I would have been judging myself, like,
Yes.
it was something I can't fix. It's the internet, for goodness sakes. But
Yeah.
I was like, wow, and I said, no, this is love. We'll just record it. It's all good. The right people will listen to it at the right time, so we're good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we became more innovative, creative, and Gia, my assistant, came up with a great solution, and we just went along.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's such a beautiful example, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I have found personally, breath has really offered me that gift.
Mhm.
So it takes a lot more for me to tip into a stress response, which I
Yep.
do.
Yes.
Absolutely, I do, but it takes far more to get me there. And
Yes.
I am able to respond to what my body's needs are far more easily. There's far more of a connection with the subtle signals of my body, which
Yes.
is, I think, part of what burnout is. Like, we lose that sensitivity, you know.
Yep.
And so, I mean,
Yep.
it's completely life changing, and it's also something that we take for granted because we're doing it all the time, because we
Mhm.
don't have to think about breathing. You know, some of the most powerful things are right under our noses. It's right there. It's always been there, and
Mhm.
it's almost as if it's too obvious. It's too simple. You know.
Yep. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And in that note, Ella, I was just wondering if we could bring our everyone through a breath practice
Oh
that
yes,
you could lead us in, and
yes.
just to show we can breathe together as humanity,
Oh yes. Let's do
as
that.
healing awareness. We'll just not put away, but so trauma is now taking a back seat here. We are now moving forward with healing awareness through our breath awareness, through breath intelligence, and
Hmm.
would be absolutely beautiful if you could lead us through that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Vanessa. Hmm. Thank you, everybody. So I invite you to share this practice with me just for a few minutes. And wherever you are, just take a moment to change your posture into a posture that embodies presence. So, whatever that means for you, perhaps if you're sitting in your chair, you could uncross your legs and feet and to gently place them on the floor as you receive the support of the ground underneath you. And with the next inhale, feel as if you are drawing the breath from the tip of your tailbone all the way to the top of your head. And on the next exhale, soften the back of your neck and your shoulders. If you feel comfortable to do so, you're welcome to close your eyes. Otherwise, just look at a point towards the ground, lowering your gaze and turning towards the sensation of your breath. And for a moment, acknowledging the gift that your breath is, the life-giving, nurturing force that has always supported you from the moment that you were born. For a moment, just relax into that rhythm. Feel into the language that your breath is speaking today. On the next breath, on the next exhale, imagine your sit bones being anchored to the ground, supporting you, receiving the support of the ground underneath you, receiving the support of the chair behind you if you're sitting. receiving the support of all the beautiful people that are on this call, receiving the support once again of your own breath. Wherever you are, get the sense of the shape of your body. And as you start to come alive to the sensations of the breath, begin to feel into the parts of your body that have been so concerned with doing. The next exhale, as you sigh the breath out, soften the back of your neck that has been keeping your head up, the head of heavy thoughts or full of thoughts. Just soften, release the back of your neck with a soft sigh. On the next exhale, feel your eyeballs softening back in their sockets. Just releasing any tension that your eyes have been holding from looking at the screen, for example. Now bring your attention to your jaw. Perhaps you've been holding some tension in the jaw. The next sigh softens out the jaw. Beautiful. And the next soft sigh washes across your shoulders, relieving you from all the responsibilities that you've been holding on your shoulders. For now, this is your time and your space. Beautiful. And with the next soft exhale, begin to feel into the place in your body that feels most still, that feels most quiet. Just get a sense of where that could be in your body, where stillness lives in your body. And very gently begin to breathe there in a quiet, soft rhythm. No need to breathe in any particular way, to come alive to the sensations of a quiet circle of breath, a dynamic stillness. Inhale, exhale. Rest here for a moment. And with every breath, imagine that this still point is beginning to expand and is starting to inhabit more of your body. That the still point expands to embrace your heart. That the still point expands to embrace every part of you. All those hurt and tired parts, those parts that you've kept locked away, that have been holding everything for you, your pain, your grief, your anger. Just hand it all over to this expanded still point of love, held by the breath. Rest here deeply. Know this place within you, this anchored and safe place within you that is always there, that is always available and accessible simply by turning your attention to the breath, by having the intention of tapping back into this incredible, eternal, and timeless source of energy within you, authentic energy, the source of nurturing, that all of existence resides within every breath, that nurtures you and that you are part of, that you are contributing to with every conscious breath you take in this timeless, eternal pulse. Now, keeping this feeling alive within you, very gently begin to become aware once again of the ground beneath your feet, becoming aware of the room And as you gently open your eyes, keeping them half open, your gaze downwards, reconnect with this feeling of expansion within you at this time, incorporating the awareness of your environment, using the breath as a bridge, connecting your inner and outer worlds. Just appreciating this incredible field of energy that we have all contributed to today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. That was I had a few tears in my eyes, just feeling the energy and the love that we were sharing, and that's the power of breathing together and in such a simple way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa. Deep gratitude to you and to everybody who's here.
Yeah. And I would really love to show Ella's beautiful work here. She has such a range of things. I think you have it's a free breathwork sessions or some regular breathwork sessions. Is that, am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep, yep. And so beautiful. You can see how beautiful it is to breathe together, and that's why I've brought it up, because this is what it's all about. We're supporting each other with the breath, and so we have this opportunity with Ella to do that. And these are her, how you would contact her, and just connect with her work. She's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And we also have she's provided some resources for us. It's on her website that you can download, and one of them is an ebook.
Yes.
And that's the and if you would like to speak about that ebook, Ella, that would be fantastic, so we'll know what it's about.
Yes, thank you. It's called Burnout to Breathing. So it outlines some of the basic principles of energy management, and it also speaks about the role of conscious breathing to support authentic energy. And it speaks about the vagus nerve and a little bit about the neuroscience, and just some practical breathing practices that you can use too.
Yep, wonderful. Yep, and that's just all in that support of what we've just done together. It's all there for you. It's all on the website for the summit as well, so you don't have to quickly like scribble things down. It's all there, and there is support for everyone. So, and just one more question before we go. Just imagine yourself as you see your 8-year-old self just standing in front of you right now. She's having a moment. She's having a moment of maybe joy, sadness, whatever that is coming through her at the moment. And you see her and you go to her. What would you whisper in her ear?
There's absolutely nothing to fear. You are always supported. You are always guided. Even in times where you feel scared and you're unsure, know that all of life is here to support you. And even what feels challenging is a gift. You can't always see it at the time, but just trust you are so loved. You are so loved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ella, for just being here with us, for sharing that breath practice, for bringing your work to the world, and for being so generous with your time with us, and for all of you that's breathing with us today. And during the summit, like tomorrow, I will have a free breathwork session for all of you. It's the conscious connected breath, and it is in your emails on how to access it. So it's all there. But it's a conscious connected breath session in the evening for Australia, and connect with us there. It's a time where we can share as a community what we've learned, what we're going through, and then we'll just breathe together for that. And that will be a very special occasion. And next week too will be I'll have one on Monday and Thursday for everybody as well, just to really sort of integrate what we've done. So Ella, thank you so much for your beautiful time with us. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for all that you're doing. I really am so privileged, and thank you for the opportunity to share this work.
Thank you. Thank you. And people, please share this with people who need to hear this right now, because this is a free resource and we love you. We support you for exactly who you are. Thank you, guys. We'll see you in the other interviews. Thank you.